Decided to make a movie on this because it's an important subject, and I wasn't going to make a movie, so I might not publish this, but I'm just going to go with it. Dark psychology. Now, dark psychology is a manipulation of another person's mind so that the situation and what they do and what they become works out for you, but is detrimental to their future, but they don't know. They fully trust and support the person or the people manipulating them. And they use gaslighting, Stockholm syndrome, and a whole lot of things like that, especially fear. I've discovered that fear is one of the most powerful tools of character assassination, manipulation, and the like. Dark people use dark psychology on themselves. And I'll use this very simple example of abortion. Now, when you see the baby in the mother's tummy, you don't, but you see the form of it, scan. I can't remember what those are called. Anyway, you see the baby moving around, and clearly it sucks its thumb, it does flips, it's obviously having fun inside its mother's tummy. And it kicks a lot. I mean, anything that kicks is alive. And you got these people who are staunch on full term abortion or any form of abortion. The point is it's scientifically and medically extremely obvious that the baby is a human being and it is alive. Yet legally, just about in every so-called developed country of enlightened, wise people, the baby is killed in the possibly billions every year, at least millions. And no one knows how many China is killing. And no one knows where the dead bodies are going. So they'll be going into the ground and probably the crops. They're atheists. They have no moral or work ethics issues. Just where they skin dogs alive and eat them and stuff like that. I mean, you'd kill it first. Anyway, dark psychology is what they do. It's when we rationalize something that's not obvious, that's obviously not right, and it's dark, means it's evil, it's bad, and we rationalize it in our minds to suit us because we have some kind of weakness or we have a desire. Abortion suits feminism, women's liberation, and women being able to. I remember reading about it years ago when I was a teenager how there was the big debate of women not being able to just go out and have a lot of sex with different partners. They always paid the price for their prior crimes or the pleasure by getting pregnant. Women hated that, and that's why the pill came out and all sorts of other methods like condoms and that came out to protect women from getting pregnant but still being able to have a lot of sex. If we were naturally born that way, then it would be that way, but it's not. So fighting our natural birth and our natural character and our natural way, a woman is a woman, a man is a man, going the opposite to that is just self-defeating ourselves. Anyway, dark psychology is when you choose something. Another one is the hunter. The hunter sits on a hill, he shoots a deer on the other side of the hill, and he's thrilled and excited the moment he pulls the trigger because he's just killed a deer. His excuse is taking the meat home for his family, but today they don't need to. So the reality is the thrill of the chase and the kill and the hunt, which is dark. It's evil. It's wrong because it doesn't need to happen. You live in a world where there's supermarkets everywhere. You don't need to go out and hunt. You can go out and go hiking if you want to get out in nature. You can go out and take a camera and take photos. I've read a lot of stories of hunters turning into photography because they realised that what they were doing was wrong. So when there's no need for something, doing it makes it dark. There's no need for it. the mass slaughtering of animals and supporting the meat industry. A lot of people became vegetarians and the like because they didn't want to participate in that. Dark psychology is kind of where we actually know we're doing wrong, or we know we're questioned for doing wrong or supporting something that's wrong, but we come to a stage where we fully believe we're doing right. The transition is normally in our teenage years, like I said before in another video. You get a child at 6 years old, you ask her, "Is it all right to mum to kill the baby in her tummy? Would you kill your baby in your womb?" And the baby, the 6 year old, would say, "Of course not." They'd be horrified, absolutely horrified. And the males would be too. Then at the age of 18, she's 100% for it and probably had an abortion. There's a atheist, because atheism is immoral and supports immorality, indecency, death sports, uh, cruelty, like fur coats and animals being, atheism is without morals, without work ethics. There are a lot of people who are half atheists, but they have no idea. And they still want to cling on to morals and stuff, but they don't believe in God. And the way the churches have treated people, that was the reason I never wanted to be a follower of God. Those people were horrible. Many of them were. So I didn't want to be like that. So I'm a follower of God, but I'm not a follower of a church anymore. I just can't be a part of that. Dark psychology is something I have done to myself, especially when I was, and I'm not perfect now. There are bound to be things I'm a hypocrite about, and there's bound to be things that I'm messing up in my life, making mistakes about. And there might be darkness here that I don't recognize that now. What it means is, I went to a church where the teenagers were taken out. They slit the throat of a sheep, and then they killed it, and then they skinned it, and they chopped it all up to pieces. And it was seen as a wonderful lesson for the young people. I was very much against it and absolutely horrified. And anything like that, I wouldn't allow my children to do. But anyway, and they're vegetarians anyway, so the point here is that when you participate in dark psychology, you, like the girl who's doing the character assassination of me, they hypnotize her, they drug her, they use fear to confuse her. So while she's telling all the people around town lies about me, she fully believes it. But one day she's going to figure it out it was wrong. And that's when you click out of darkness psychology. When I was a heavy drinker at home, probably, when was that? Oh, a long time back. My ex-wife and I used to get a big bottle of rum, and we could drink it in 2 or 3 days. There was no violence or anything like that. There was just, we would just play cards, watch TV, watch movies. And this is a couple of decades back, and that was our fun. We didn't go out and party or anything at that stage. We partied before that. She partied after that. But at that stage, I was drinking, and I thought that kind of behaviour was all right. When I was a teenager, there would have been some parties and people I'd hung out with, and I did things with that I thought was all right. I didn't see anything dark in it. See, the thing about dark psychology, or the darkness in our mind that we don't see as dark, we only see light, is when we participate in dark things, we think they're all right. We think they're light. We think it's fine. We think it's all right to do these. Gambling's a good example. The mother or father will gamble and gamble and gamble, and there's all sorts of gambling problems all constantly being said. But at the time we do it, we think it's fun. um, prostitution and certain sexual behaviors and that we participate in, we think they're fine. And but then afterwards, when we give them up, we're like, oh my gosh, there were things that my ex and I used to do, and I used to cry. I used to cry because I didn't want to do them, and she told me I was queer, I was boring, I wasn't fun, and she couldn't quite figure out what my problem was. And it caused a big divide with us because I kept putting these walls up and saying, no, I'm not going there. Or I might go there a bit and say, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I can't go there. And I didn't recognize those things as darkness. I just recognized them as things I just couldn't do. And dark psychology is when we fool us. Well, the society we live in fools us into believing that these things are good. Commercialism has sold everything, like sex, abortion. You pay for it. It's now an industry. Sex is an industry. Hunting is an industry. And there's a whole lot of bad things in our industries. The thing here about the industry is that um, that they become industries and they sell what is immorally wrong, indecent, unethical, and like chemicals in our food and stuff like that. That's dark psychology. The people who go out and they defend the chlorine and fluoride and the like in our water, they defend it and say it's fine, it's good. Put it in there. And I drink rainwater now. I don't drink tap water. And I cook with rainwater and everything. The thing here is there are other alternatives, but they don't want us to take those alternatives. Why? When we, the gist of what I'm trying to say is we fool ourselves, we trick ourselves, we do dark things, but we believe they're good things. And we pretend to ourselves that they're good things. And we will fight viciously for them. We will. I've argued with a lot of people on about abortion. I've argued with a lot of people about hitting children, about violence, domestic violence, and the like. I've talked to males who hit their woman at home, and they say, "Oh, shuts her up," and they see nothing wrong in it. It doesn't help that some of the women are quite mouthy, and it causes they're obviously not equally yoked. And so they clash, and then he hits her because it ends the argument quickly. And it's over, and it's like trying to explain to him that what he's doing is wrong, is in 10 years. It's like when a lot of people become religious, and then they look back at their past and they see darkness. And they see all the dark things they did, and they want to go straight out and rectify it. Go to the police if they've got something to own up for, tell the police about bad people. I remember a guy at Kinleith, he stole a lot of stuff over 20, 30 years, and he found God. And he was, for the next for weeks, I think it was, he was taking huge bags of rubbish bags of the stuff he'd stolen from Kinleith. He was giving it all back because his conscience couldn't bear what he'd done. And so when he was stealing and doing the dark stuff, unfair stealing, he saw himself as just taking advantage of a situation. To him, it wasn't bad, it wasn't darkness, it was all right. There's nothing wrong with it. But once he found God and he found out about good moral standards, being a good person, being honest, being true, being truthful, his conscience was tamed, and he thought, that's it, I can't deal with this, I have to take it all back. And he took it all back. When the hunter's conscience gets to him and he realizes he's actually hunting to kill something, he's not hunting for food because he doesn't need the food. When you look at it, you say, well, I have a choice to buy something in the supermarket or shooting something through the head. I mean, you don't need to do the violent thing, so you can buy it. they might say they want a certain type of meat, like deer. Wouldn't it be all right to give that up so that the deers can roam the forest untouched and living their natural way? You know, it's hard trying to explain to people, and we get very frustrated and very angry when we've looked out of the square and gone beyond the square, while they're still living in the square, participating in society and in darkness, and they get very angry at you for pointing their faults out, and they say, "Well, what are yours?" And it's like Jesus says, with a plank in your eye. So I say all this with no judgment. I just recognize that dark psychology exists, that we use it on ourselves. So while we do bad things, we refuse to admit we're doing bad things. Like the narcissist who's manipulating a victim, and the victim is powerless because they've been drugged, they've been coerced, they've been lied to, they've been tricked. And so the victim has full faith and respect and love for the person who's hurting them. And the person who's hurting them has no guilt that they're hurting them. There's no bad feelings in their head or in their heart that they're doing something wrong. And trying to convince that person they're doing wrong is impossible, because it's only when their own conscience goes, this is not good. They look at the person they're victimizing and say, this is not good. What I'm doing is wrong. And then I can't do this anymore. And so they pack up and just stop doing it. And that's the thing. In the past, you've got lots of people who've, like Martin Luther, who took on the Pope. You know, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. But dark psychology is when we trick ourselves in doing dark things, and we call them good. We pretend they're good, like drug abuse, and we're hitting our children, violence, rage, lack of control, immaturity, self-destructive thoughts, self-destructive behaviors like parties, drugs, alcohol abuse, abusing their own children, and sexually, physically, emotionally, and all that sort of stuff. There's so many things out of dark psychology that are actually, a lot of them are accepted in today's society. People are, there's a girl doing a TED talk about how we should let the pedophiles have children. So she was saying it's just the same as gays, on the same theme as gays, that it's just something that they've been in the closet for, and it's a sexual orientation, and they should be allowed the rights to children just as a lesbian is allowed the rights to a female, or a male to a male. So therefore, adults should be allowed rights to children. Now that is darkness in its most chilling form, because the child has no idea what's happening to it. Then the child ends up accepting the abuse and ends up doing it themselves, and it just creates a big triangle of Pompeii and Egypt and all those places when they became very evil. So dark abuse is when we fool ourselves and trick ourselves into believing that the evil things that we are doing are good, when there's no need for them. There's actually no need to control and abuse people. There's no need to abuse children. There's no need doing things like that. We have thoughts like that. You need help. That's it, parent. You should be so distraught and horrified at the thought that you would look at a child sexually. And you should be so horrified and disgusted that you want to kill something that doesn't need killing, or hurt someone who doesn't need hurting. You've got to defend someone, you've got no food, and you're in the bush, you kill a rabbit and you eat it. But when you're surrounded by supermarkets, you don't. It's ethics. It's being a good person. And it's the same as the baby in its mother's tummy. Womb. If you can't see that child as a child living alive, and it's just in a different environment, It can't speak and say defend itself because it's still in the womb. But in every other way, in every viewing you see of it, and when you feel the mother's tummy and then the baby kicks, it's alive. It's just personal preference for darkness. So the selfishness can allow them to do other things by having an abortion. And it's also not taking responsibility for what you do. Being aware of the darkness that we choose to participate in helps us understand honestly and honorably and responsibly that our thoughts aren't right about certain things. And these things need to be changed. So we need to understand that we use dark psychology on ourselves as a therapist or psychologist or a narcissist would do on the victim. So the narcissist will trick the victim into doing something that the narcissist wants them to do, right? In a case where a narcissist guy got a religious girl into an anal relationship, and he used hypnotism, drugs, and coercion to fool her into believing that it was a godly, decent relationship because she couldn't physically have sex at that time. And so she fully supported it and thought she was in this wonderful, indecent, immoral um, relationship that made her lose respect for herself, especially once she realized it. Once she realized it, she quickly got out of the relationship. Thought, oh my gosh, this is horrible. What am I doing? But it's the fooling ourselves or acceptance of dark things that we think are good. Now, I'm not judging you in anything you do. I'm not telling you. I've discovered that when you announce things or you do videos like this or write articles, that you put it out there and you let the people figure out whether they like it or not, or they think it's. But it's mostly about your conscience, pricking your conscience and saying, this is wrong, I don't want to do this anymore. The repercussions and the results of what I'm doing have me disliking myself, hating myself, or have me fooling myself that the darkness that I'm participating in is a good thing, when it's obviously not. And that's the thing where we need to wake up, be mature, be responsible, and say, now this is wrong. I'm not doing this anymore. It's not about me telling everyone what to do. It's about us wanting the best for ourselves and wanting the best for the world. And so when we complain that the world isn't what we want it to be, we need to ask ourselves, what are we doing that is participating in the toxic, dysfunctional world we don't like? And then changing that.